What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Abundance Podcast with Sonia Gomez. I'm your host, Sonia Gomez. Super excited to have you on another show. As you know, I hand select every one of my guests because they are making an incredible impact in both their life and their business. On the Abundance Podcast, we are talking about the areas of life that matter most: our faith, our family, our finances, and how it affects our future. I want to invite you right now to take a few small actions. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and tag 5 people that you believe this is going to make an impact for. By taking these small actions, we've been able to impact hundreds of millions of people worldwide with our content. And I'm so excited and truly honored to have you be a part of this incredible community. Today, you guys, I'm having a starstruck moment because I have an incredible entrepreneur, change maker, father in my studio to guest. Our guest today is the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire, an award-winning podcast where he has interviewed over 3,000 guests, inspiring entrepreneurs just like you and supporting you along your way in your entrepreneurial journey. An active duty member and Army officer for over 4 years, and author of The Uncommon Path to Uncommon Success. Guys, put your hands together and help me welcome my good friend to be, John Lee Dumas. How's it going, John?
I like that. My good friend to be. That is a great way of putting it because, we're definitely going to be able to connect over the next time frame we have together here. And I'm excited to be here. It's going to be a great conversation. I love your energy. That's what I've tried to bring to my now about 4,300 episodes that we've recorded in the past 11 and a half years, getting to do things that I love doing, talking to cool people like you, whether I'm on either side of the mic, hosting or guesting. I love it. I think it's a fun way to spend some time, and we get to do that today. So I'm looking forward to bringing value to your audience, which is my goal every time I turn the microphone on. So let's go.
Let's go. I have watched and listened to so many of your podcast episodes, seen all of your articles. You are speaking to some incredible names in the industry, all about a lot of business content. I want to congratulate you on the new addition to your family. You're a father, a successful businessman, recognized and respected public figure. Look at that cutie.
I was just showing a little picture of Bo, baby. Let's go.
We'll be linking that in the bio. You're a husband, and I want to ask you the question because I recognize that a lot of high-performing, high-impact entrepreneurs are really considering in the privacy of their own home what their legacy is. What's the definition of legacy for you, and what's the legacy you're leaving behind for your family?
One thing I do love about the platform of podcasts, it is free, valuable, and on-demand content that's can be listened to at any point in time. And I know that right now there's somebody listening to a podcast that I recorded in 2012, in 2015, in 2019. And most of my episodes, not all of them, but most of them are very evergreen, meaning we talk about the strategies, the tools, the tactics, the mindset, the struggles, the obstacles, the challenges, the failures, like all of those things that can help people at different points in their lives, no matter when they're listening. So I love the fact that maybe 100 years from now, somebody's going to go back into the archives and listen to a couple episodes and maybe get some inspiration for what they're doing in their world. And of course, I'll probably be gone. Although we're not going to get into this today, probably. I am a big believer, and we are extending our longevity every single day with the amazing work that we're doing in different fields. So who knows how long I'll be around. And I look at my son, Bo, like you mentioned, who's kind of my legacy right now. Maybe I'll be adding to that in the future years to come. Time will tell. But I'm really big on what can I instill in my listeners, who I lovingly refer to as Fire Nation? What can I instill into my son, Bo, that's going to make him a good person? That's going to make him a respectful person. Like, that's the things that my goal is, that when he's 18 years old and he goes off into the world, like, he's going to try a lot of things, but he's going to have those innate foundational qualities that I believe make a good person through my experience in life. So I'm excited for the journey. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait for it to keep on ticking by.
I'm 4 kids deep. It never stops ticking, and I wish you the best of success.
What's the age ranges?
Age ranges, I have a son, 21, killing it at life at Montana State in Bozeman, Montana. I have a 17-year-old who is just about to graduate, second in her class from Berkshire up in Massachusetts, and just got early admission into Northwestern. total theater buff. I have an art student in Boulder who's 15, and I have a 7-year-old queen of all queens living with me here in Florida.
All over. You see, your legacy is already spread throughout all the United States. That's pretty exciting.
Well, I'm in the regenerative farming space, helping families build sustainable food systems and legacy on their land. So might as well start planting seeds now, huh?
Hey, we need to start doing that in Puerto Rico, by the way. So let's have a little.
By the way, see, I told you we were going to be friends. We should talk about building abundance over there. I'm going to ask you this question. It's not something I've heard you talk about, maybe because it doesn't really hold much significance or play a significant role for you in your life. But I have to ask, where does faith fall in your life and in business? Do you lean heavily on that? Is there a higher power for you that you look to in times of challenges or celebration?
I would like to, before I answer that question, ask you, like, how do you define faith? Just so I can make sure that I'm answering that question correctly.
Thank you for asking me that, actually. For me, I was raised with Native American Indians who really connected me to the elements around me and helped me tap into Mother Nature, recognizing that there is a spirit, a life in all things, big and small. And I always recognize that there is something greater than myself. Call it energy, call it God, however you want to recognize that. I take time and make space for peace and quiet so that I can hear myself and the pieces of myself that are otherwise muted when I'm out in the hustle and bustle of life. And so I would say I'm spiritual, following teachings and the traditions of ancient ceremonies passed to me through the Native American Indian and their tribes. But I wouldn't say that I'm religious. Although I will say that many of the people that I do speak to classify themselves as connected to some sort of religion, whether it's Christianity, Catholicism, Muslims, whatever that is. And I honor that is within each person because I do believe that there is something greater than us that can support us in times of need and help us celebrate in times of joy.
That's very interesting. I'm a big believer in energy. Like, we are nothing except energy. Like, everything about us is energy, which is why, like, to every interview that I bring, I try to bring good, positive, high energy, enthusiasm, excitement, because I believe that is emanating throughout. And that's something that I know I can always bring to the table. I love that concept that, energy is all around us. We are energy. Similar, I'm not connected to any religion whatsoever. I don't really believe in any of the quote unquote traditional forms of religion. That's just nothing that I've ever connected with. And it's never really been something that I've dove into. Who knows what my future may hold? I am always and pride myself in being a very open person. And I know I may change my mind 100 times, before I pass on from this earth. And who knows what I'm going to be thinking or believing by the end of that. I like to kind of, maybe wrap up this segment of what we're talking about here with faith by saying that I do believe that nothing comes from nothing. So guess what? This is something. This world that we're living in is something. This conversation that we're having is something. This earth, this land, this water is something. And so where did that come from? That came from something, because nothing comes from nothing. So whatever that something is, I believe that is what I'm saying. Like, there's something out there, and it's magical and it's spiritual and it's amazing. And if it ever gets revealed to me, or I ever have a interesting line of belief towards that for some reason, because something that I read or hear or consume in some form, then I'm open to it. But until that day, I'm just kind of like, hey, something's out there. It's magical, it's spiritual, and we'll see if it ever gets revealed to me. Until then, I'm just having a fantastic life, nothing stressing me out on one side or the other of that topic. And I applaud people that have unbelievable faith in their form of religion. I'm sure that is something that is helping them, that's strengthening them, that's forming family and community, which is another one of your four, foundations, which I think is important, which we'll be getting to. But for me, like, I've got my foundations, they're working fine, and I'm loving it.
Love that answer. Thank you for sharing that. I really wonder about this all the time. When you get an opportunity to talk to somebody like you who's so highly recognized and respected, and you could make a phone call and get one phone call away is what they say. I have to know, in 4,300 episodes, who's your unicorn guest? Who are you aspiring to get on? And what question would you ask them?
I don't have any unicorn guests. I never have. Nope, it just hasn't happened. There's guests that I've loved having on. It was very exciting. I look at my guests as people who have just taken time to jump on a microphone with me, and I honor every single one of them because their time is valuable, and I'm very appreciative of that. And there's no guest that I have any desire of getting. I've believed for so long now that if they're meant to be on my show, him or her, whoever that may be, they will find a way to my show. Like that is how I truly operate Entrepreneurs on Fire. And doing a daily show, there's always going to be an opportunity for anybody that wants to make their way and they, my team feels like they're the right fit, then we will definitely look to have them on. And that will be very exciting. There is somebody who I always do say, if I had had the opportunity of interviewing, it would have been a dream come true. I'm actually reading a biography of him right now. It's called The First American, and that's Benjamin Franklin. There's just, for some reason, that individual has always fascinated me. He's somebody who I would have loved to have known, to have been able to kind of follow his life from afar would have been super cool. And I'm, kind of doing that by reading his biography in some ways. That's, Benjamin Franklin, man. I'd love to have a conversation with him, but ain't going to happen in this world.
Well, that's a really good answer. And too bad he's not around because I would love to hear that interview.
But what's interesting is what the crazy things that are happening with AI, like so fast, so, such like evolution. I feel like we are going to be able to start having conversations with individuals that we have a lot of information on. It will never be the same. It's not like you're having an actual conversation with that person. With people like Benjamin Franklin and other people of his, stature and all that stuff, there's so much content about them that AI is going to be able to create this really interesting conversational tool that you can feel like you're having this conversation with them, which, is a distant second, but it is a second, best opportunity.
When AI hits Entrepreneurs on Fire, you guys, that is that is going to be lit. No pun intended. I have to tell you that in my previous industry, I helped create the legislation that legalized cannabis for a for-profit medical model in Colorado. Spent the last 12 years publishing in one of the most restricted industries in the world, have a ton of bumps and bruises to showcase for that. But one of the ways that I was able to bypass many of the challenges that came with marketing in that industry was by creating content. And you were a huge inspiration of what we did. I thought to myself, if I can out-publish my competition, I don't care what their background is. I don't care what their accolades are. I'm a informally trained, no college education entrepreneur, but I have a great personality. Let's see if I can outshine them. And so using your 1 episode a day model completely cracked the code for me. And I was able to go from who is that person to one of the top thought leaders in that space. And I'm really curious to know, with all of the impact that you've made with your podcast, with your business, what's one thing that's working really well for you right now that my listeners should consider implementing into their business?
I can just put into a phrase, which is called putting in the reps. And that's what you did by publishing daily. That's what I've done for 11 and a half years now by publishing daily. I became great at my craft, which was interviewing entrepreneurs, which was facilitating conversations, public speaking, like actually being a communicator that people enjoy listening to, not being that person that's, unfortunately, that doesn't put in the reps, is like stuttering and ums and ahs, and they can't form a coherent sentence, to a question that comes up to them just because they haven't put in the reps. It doesn't make them a worse person or a less smart person or a less successful person. It just makes them worse at a craft that I've become great at, which is communicating, which is speaking, which is presenting, which is doing what I consider a very important tool for me in the industry that I've chosen. So it's putting in the reps, because when I saw, just much like you were talking about, there was already some thought leaders in the entrepreneurial space of podcasting back in 2012. I said, I'm not going to be able to compete with them if I do the same thing as them. If I produce the same amount of content, 1 episode per week as them, I'm not going to stand out because they're already better than me. They already have higher brands and, they're already considered thought leaders in the industry. So why would anybody listen to me? And the answer is they wouldn't have. And plus, how am I going to get good at my craft by doing it 1 day per week, 52 times per year? You don't. Did LeBron James practice once a week? Did Tiger Woods go to the golf course, 50 times a year? No, he went 50 times a month. LeBron James, he was a master at his craft. He lived in the gym. And, take those sports analogies. That's what I did. I lived in the studio. I did it every single day and I've never stopped. I've gotten a tiny, tiny bit better every single time I flipped on this microphone because I'm continuing to put in the reps. And I continue to do that now for 11 and a half years and counting. And that's what I would say to anybody listening right now is, what is that thing for you that's putting in the reps? Is it writing? Is it reading? Is it speaking? Is it drawing? Is it coding? It doesn't matter what that actual craft is, but are you out crafting your competitors by putting in the reps and becoming better as a result? And just to finish real quick on something that's such an obvious, like no clue, no duh moment for me is this pottery class in college. The professor split them into two sides of the room. He said, you on the right side, I'm only going to grade you on your single best piece of pottery. So you don't have to do anything except one piece of pottery. I'm just going to grade you on that one piece of pottery. And to the left side, he said, I'm not going to grade you on your quality, only on the amount that you do. If you do 100, you get an A. If you do 70, you get a B, and so on and so forth. And by the end of that semester, the people who had done the quantity, not only had they done the quantity, they'd done over 100 because they wanted an A. They didn't matter if it was good or bad. They had also become fantastic at pottery because they just had been doing it every single day over and over and over again, even despite themselves, even though they didn't really care that they were getting better because it wasn't an impact. They were just getting better exponentially because they were doing that thing, while the people on the right were just like, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to do one pot. It's going to be perfect. And it was terrible because they didn't know what they were doing. And they just worked on one pot and it sucked because they weren't good at it because they didn't put in the reps. And so other people had piles of terrible pottery that eventually got bad, then okay, then good, then great, then fantastic. Do that in your industry.
I was talking about this exact concept yesterday when I was going through one of my marketing audits with a client. And a lot of what I do is help people master their message so they can monetize their mission. I only take on a handful of clients, so I get to work really concentrated with them. And this was a group who does, spiritual awakenings, retreats. And one of the things they were most afraid of was this idea of being an imposter in their space. And I was talking to them about the concept of failing forward, having the courage to do something enough times that you're no longer terrible and you're no longer an imposter in the space. Everybody starts out with their insecurities. It's just a matter of whether or not you're willing to do the work and put in the time to become better and more impactful with the work that you're doing. So I love hearing you talk about the importance of speaking and communication, because in my own business, that has been the one skill set that allows me to make a move and become successful no matter what industry or what avatar I'm serving, is my ability to capture, connect, and convert an audience and communicate effectively with passion and apply purpose. So
Like if anybody listening right now has ever been to a conference and they've seen a speaker on stage and they're like, oh my God, that speaker is unbelievable. They're so confident. They're so polished. They're so good. They're just great at speaking. I could never be that good. Like I promise you with 100% certainty that speaker could in 10 seconds send you a clip of their first or fifth or even 50th speech where they were horrible, where they got up there and they were stuttering and sputtering and, pacing back and forth and sweating profusely. I promise you. And so, of course, like they're great now after doing thousands of times. And of course, they were terrible the first few times that they did it, just like you will be the first time you do anything.
100% agree. I have to ask you, who is your coach or mentor right now, and why did you choose to work with them?
So I don't have a coach or a mentor right now. I'm a believer in both. I've spent countless dollars and cents over the years hiring both and learning from them, especially back in the early days when I hired Jamie Masters, who was a fantastic podcast host of The Eventual Millionaire. She was my one-on-one mentor, and that was invaluable. And I hired a mastermind leader, Cliff Ravenscraft, the podcast answer man. He was fantastic being part of his masterminds. I love masterminds. I love mentors. And I've had them in all different industries over the years. And frankly, right now I have a lot of mentors who I kind of like, watch from afar, like either reading their books. I mean, Benjamin Franklin's a mentor of mine right now because I am reading his words, his philosophies on life, his 12 virtues. He's mentoring me through the written word, which is why books audiobooks, podcasts are so amazing because you can have these virtual mentors that may not even be alive that you can learn so much from. But again, I do love having an actual mentor who is the right person at the right time to take their brain and put it on your business. Like I can't be like Benjamin Franklin, like, what do you think I should do with entrepreneurs on fire? Because he can't answer that question. He'd be like, well, what's a podcast? But secondly, he'd be like, I've never done that, so I can't help you. And thirdly, he's not alive. So, I mean, that's the value. And I mentor people one-on-one. I have somebody that I'm mentoring right now, and their opportunity of having my brain on their business is invaluable. And they're seeing why it's so invaluable, saving them so much time, energy, and effort for a huge reason, because they're avoiding the mistakes that I've made over and over again. And I can just say, don't do that because I've done that and failed doing that. So let's do this instead because this worked. And they're like, wow, that just saved me time, energy, effort, money, bandwidth, which is why it's invaluable.
100% agree. One of the most important investments I ever made, because I chose not to go to college, I picked up certifications and trainings along the way, but I customized my education by investing into masterminds. I wanted to hone one particular craft and found the person in that space that was shining brighter than anyone else and doing things at a level that I never thought I could get to. And the power of proximity, I mean, has paid me back 100 times over. And when I think about making impact or generating more revenue for my company, I always plug myself into the space and put myself around the people that I know can help me accelerate that success. You say that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Who are the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and how does that contribute to your success?
So I literally end every single one of my podcast episodes with that topic. So like if you were on Entrepreneurs on Fire right now, Sonia, and we were wrapping up, I'd be like, hey, Fire Nation, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And you've been hanging out with Sonia and JLD today. So keep up that heat. Because I'm telling my audience is like, you're virtually hanging out with us right now. We're 2 people. And so who are the other 3 people that you're going to be hanging out with, whether in person in real life or virtually, that's going to up your average? Because believe me, we're upping your average right now. For anybody that's listening right now, we are upping your average. So kudos to you for listening because your average is being increased. It's a great quote by Jim Rohn. Again, somebody who's been like a virtual mentor of mine for years now, just by me reading his work and, consuming his content, so to speak. So that's kind of who my mentors would be right now, to be honest with you. I have, a couple really good friends that I stay in touch with. We're in a WhatsApp group that's very health and wellness specific. And we're always keeping each other accountable, making each other, we're all guys. So we make each other, send pictures with our shirts off just to make sure that, we're holding each other accountable of like what we want as far as, we're getting older. I mean, we're in our 40s and rising. And I mean, like if you let things slip, it's really hard to get back.
Yeah.
So I'm reading Peter Diamedi's book right now, The Longevity Explained. And like that book is just, I'm learning so much from that content right there that I love it. There's definitely podcasts that I listen to on a daily basis that I learn from. Like I, pick and choose, but I definitely love Tim Ferriss's podcast, which, I learn a lot from. And then there's like some other industry specific shows that I listen to that I can really garner some valuable information from. So, to me, like there's just no excuse not to be surrounding yourself with amazing people, whether that's via the podcast you're listening to, the audiobooks you're consuming, the books you're actually reading, or the in real life stuff. Like right now, Kate, my wife, with my son Bo, is at a little moms meetup that she created here in the community that we live in, Palmas del Mar in Puerto Rico. And there's 13 mothers who have a baby that was born in 2023. And so it's just the 13 of them. All the babies were born in 2023. So they're going to be going through, nursery school, kindergarten, elementary school and beyond together, potentially. Of course, people can move and all that stuff can happen, but there's a strong possibility that at least a big core of these individuals like are going to be spending the next meaningful 18 years, connected to my son and to us as a result. So Kate's doing a great job by making that mastermind, by making that connection, by making that kind of family within a family. So that's been a really cool thing to say.
I'm so fascinated by that because the concept of surrounding yourself with the people that you want to not only emulate, but continue for the next generation in the spirit of legacy, really making conscious decisions about who we're bringing our children around, because children are learning by watching, not necessarily listening in the very beginning. It's all of their senses are engaged at once, which is why we moved away from, the cannabis industry and really started to focus on food security, food sovereignty, and building legacy on your land. And it's all focused on the health. I went through a pretty significant health journey myself where I had to recover from a life-altering illness, eliminate my dependency on, pharmaceutical medications. And within 6 months of being able to eliminate those medications, actually lost 97 pounds. And a lot of it was the emotional work, but really tapping into the kind of food that I was eating and having the right accountability around me, people who cared as much or more than I did about my health and well-being, physically, mentally, emotionally, and so on. And so finding that balance, I believe that your health is the most important investment that you can make, because without that, you can't perform in any other area. So I'm really fascinated to find people like yourself who have achieved at that level are really emphasizing the importance of your personal health and well-being as a first priority and not a secondary thought, which is what I find in so many, people who are still in the monotony of the rat race.
The quote that's so true is that the healthy person wants 1,000 things. Life is your oyster. You want 1,000 things. You want to travel. You want to spend time with family. You want to try new things in the business world. The unhealthy person wants one thing, and that's just to be healthy. So everything in your life is just takes a back seat when you're unhealthy, because the only thing that you can think about and that you can really desire is to be healthy. Because when you're really unhealthy, and people out there that have actually been really unhealthy know this, that nothing else matters.
So good. Okay, final question specifically for my listeners. I ask every single one of my guests this. A lot of my listeners are aspiring entrepreneurs. I have, high value entrepreneurs, people who are ready to scale their companies. One thing they have in common is they're trying to figure out how to build their personal brand. And I say two things: your content and your connections. Your network is your net worth. I would love to hear from you. What are three things, knowing what you know now, that would help my audience achieve success faster by implementing them today?
So I'll start with the one sentence, and then I'm going to move into three things. And that one sentence is: you must become the number one solution to a real problem in this world. Very few people accomplish this, and that's why very few people succeed at any meaningful level, because they're a pale, weak imitation of somebody else, of some other product, of some other service. And nobody wants second best. Nobody wants 103rd best. People will beat a path to the doorstep of the number one solution to a real problem that they have. And they will ignore every other solution to infinity because they don't care about the other solutions. So until you are able to look in the mirror and say, I've created the number one solution to this real problem. It has to be a real problem, because there's problems that people solve all the time that nobody really cares about. But if it's a real problem, you will win, period. So the 3-step process: you got to come up with a big idea. Like, what is your big idea that you're excited about, that you're passionate about, that you're enthusiastic about, but that you also have skills, knowledge, and value on? Like, there has to be those two sides of the equation that you can combine into your big idea, your zone of fire. Because if you just have excitement, passion, and enthusiasm, but you're not really bringing any knowledge or value to the equation, that's just a hobby. Nobody's going to really care that you love this thing if you're not bringing them any value. But if you just have skills and knowledge and value that you're bringing to the equation, you're going to lose, because somebody is going to be doing that also has passion for that thing, and they're going to outwork you, going back to that thing we talked about, putting in the reps. They're going to put in the reps and you're not, because you don't love that thing. You don't have excitement for it. You're going to lose to them. So now you're going to be second place or worse. So that is so key, to have that big idea, that zone of fire within, which is something that you're excited about, you're passionate about, that you have knowledge and skills and value that you can provide to the world into your zone of fire. Then that big idea, guess what? A lot of people have probably had that big idea because it's a big idea. So you have to discover the niche. That's number two. Within that big idea that you can dominate, again, that you can become that number one solution to a real problem. And if you've identified that niche, then the third step is you must intimately know your avatar. Your avatar is your perfect customer or client for the solution that you're providing to that problem. So what did that look like for me? My big idea. I wanted to start a podcast. Okay, there's hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there. So that's a big idea. That's not going to get me anywhere. So I discovered the niche within, which was I wanted to interview entrepreneurs. But there were hundreds of podcasts that were doing that. So I had to niche down again. I was going to interview successful entrepreneurs every single day. I brought that quantity aspect in that nobody was doing. So I became the only daily podcast in the world interviewing entrepreneurs 7 days a week. So the day that I launched, I was the best daily podcast in the world interviewing entrepreneurs. I was the worst daily podcast in the world interviewing entrepreneurs, but it didn't matter because I was the only. So I was the number one solution to a real problem because there were actually people out there that wanted to wake up every day as they're driving to work and press play on a podcast interview. Not everybody in the world, but a lot of people. Hence, over 170 million listens to our show thus far in 11 and a half years. So that's how I went from step one to step two to step three, which was my avatar. Who's my perfect listener? And I created my perfect listener. And that individual's name is Jimmy. And I know Jimmy intimately. I know everything about him. And I crafted my podcast to make sure that Jimmy would love my podcast. And I just said, hey, if Jimmy is my avatar, I'm going to create my podcast for him. And I'm going to focus every decision on him. I'm going to serve him the best of my ability. And then Jimmy will become Jimmy's and just continue to grow and grow and grow. And I'm off to the races. And that was my 3-step process. Of course, there's many steps after that. You mentioned my book, The Common Path to Uncommon Success. That is chapters 1, 2, and 3, what I just went through. And there's 19 chapters in that book. So there's a lot more steps to actually build a sustainable business, which Entrepreneurs on Fire now for 125 months in a row. 125 months in a row. We have had a net profit of over $100,000, sometimes much more, but never less than $100,000 or more a month net profit after all expenses, after everything, for 125 months in a row by following these principles.
Get it, read it, do it, make it happen. It's so good. I am so grateful, John, for the time that you're spending with us today. Any final words? How can people join Fire Nation? Where can folks follow your work? I'm sure that they're going to want to dive in with both feet.
You're obviously listening to a great podcast right now. But listen, the average person listens to 7 podcasts. So keep listening to this one, but make me one of your other 7 Entrepreneurs on Fire. Check it out at wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. eofire.com is our headquarters. We have so many free courses for entrepreneurs right there. Get on our newsletter. We're just delivering value every single week, like to an immense level. And keep on rocking.
Keep on rocking. Abundance community, thank you so much for joining us today on another episode of the Abundance Podcast with your host, Sonia Gomez. I'm so grateful to have you be a part of this incredible community. I want to just remind you that by taking a few small actions together, we can impact millions of people worldwide with the message of freedom. As you know, if you've been following me for a while, it is my mission to help empower you with the truth so that you can make educated and informed decisions about how you build prosperity and enjoy freedom in your daily lives. I'm your host, Sonia Gomez. I invite you now to like, share, tag, and subscribe. Make sure that you invite those folks that you believe are going to get massive benefit from being a part of this community. I am so grateful for you guys. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the Abundance Podcast. Bye for now.